I'm Bethany Andell, fearless leader of Savage Brands and author of the leadership book, Get Your Head Out of Your Bottom Line and Build Your Brand on Purpose. That's right, I said get your head out of your bottom line. In today's episode, we are going to talk about putting purpose before profit. In fact, putting people before profit. Can it be done? Can it be better for your business? Hell yeah.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness and to discover the one thing that changes everything. So let me ask you, what do you need to up-level your business on all levels? Well, today we're going to be taking an insider look at purpose and branding and why we all must get our heads out of the bottom line if we're going to build a brand on purpose. Remember, you can chat about this show, this episode, or any of our past episodes on Facebook in our Facebook group by simply looking for Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. If you're a new listener, new viewer, strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you tune into podcasts. And we always need your help in staying relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. When you do, go back to Facebook and tell us, and maybe we'll give you a shout out on a live show. You can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, where we're broadcasting all the way from Lancaster, Philadelphia, to Florida, to Wisconsin. We're everywhere. You can also look for us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, a big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every single show. We are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. By the way, you can also listen to us on Google Home and Alexa by simply saying, play Dov Baron Podcast. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, entrepreneur, or a leader in any capacity, you have heard me talk about this many times. If you want to last, you better find your purpose. But how do you do that when your company is not a startup? When your company's already doing well, wouldn't it just be easier to let it go? I mean, you don't want to fix what isn't broken, right? Wrong. Stay tuned because you're about to find out. Our guest today is Bethany Andell. Now, Bethany is the president of Savage Brands. She's the co-author of a brand new book called Get Your Head Out of Your Bottom Line. Not your bottom, but your bottom line. As president of Savage Brands, Bethany believes that unleashing the inherent good in all companies. She is passionate about connecting company leaders and to their purpose, ensuring that their companies and their cultures are aligned with the brands that have meaning. She is a true believer that purpose drives performance and performance drives profit in that order. She bases this on a philosophy that she's taken, which is about building from the inside out. She approaches this way to help companies uncover their purpose and align it with their operations and their culture to achieve enduring success and lasting relationships. Bethany doesn't just talk the talk, she walks the talk. She is a second-generation leader. She leads her company, which is a 45-year-old company, through challenges, rewards, ongoing processes to discover the alignment with process. She's an alumni of the University of Arizona with an MBA from Rice. She serves as past president of the National Investors Relations in Houston. She is on the Houston Advisory Board for the Iberia Bank, and she's on the alumni board for Rice Jones Graduate. She is from the School of Business and Advisory Board in Houston And on top of that, she is a board secretary for AVDA, which is Aid to Victims of Domestic Violence. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Bethany Andell.
I'm here. I'm finally here.
You're here.
I've arrived.
Just flown in from working with Elton John, or being in the company of at least, or in the audience of. It's close enough.
Presence. I could feel them.
In the presence of. There we are.
Sir,
Well, thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So let's start right now, which is that, backstory here for people who don't know, of course, is that, you are, as you said, as I said in the intro, you're running the second generation business. It's a 45-year-old business in branding, but that's not where you started. That's not what you wanted to do. This was your mom's business originally, right?
Right.
So tell us how you ended up in this divine succession.
I tried. I ran away from home.
Right.
As you
Exactly.
mentioned, went to Arizona, got out of Texas pretty quickly, and then I always wanted to be a set designer in film, a production designer. So designing everything behind the actor, and went out to LA and I made that happen. I was night school in architecture and by day, working as a PA in Hollywood, and cut 5 years. My mother called and she was trying to sell the business at the time, and they had an offer, and the CEO of the acquiring company backed out the night before the close. And the phone call to me was, well, that didn't work. You're my new succession plan.
Wow.
Come back to Houston. The company will help you get your MBA, because obviously my business experience was not even close to what Savage does. And here I am 20 years later.
So the reason I want to just focus in on this for a minute is because many of our listeners are in family businesses. They're going through the succession process. And sometimes people in the succession process go, I don't want anything to do with the business. They go away, do something else, and they get dragged back in, but they feel like they've abandoned their dreams in order to, okay, I got to pick up the torch. Is that what it was like for you, or was it something else altogether?
I was a bit worried about that, but this is where purpose comes in. I made this my dream. So
Right.
I can find things, if I look back into what I loved about set design, loved about production design, loved about the film business in general, there's opportunity for that, for doing those things inside this business as well. And so the fortunate piece is that, my mother, she didn't hold the tight reins. She really understood that when she was going to step back and I was going to step forward, that I could own it. I had a chance to really figure out what my legacy was going to be, how I was going to reinvent the business. And so I really was just able to make those connections all the way
And I
along.
think that this is such an important point. It's a lot of in the work that we do around purpose with companies, is your purpose isn't fixed in a vehicle. Your purpose is not necessarily fixed in acting or producing or dancing or film, or for that matter, business in the form that it's in. Those are forms, those are vehicles. But purpose is so much more personal and so much more in depth. And that's what I loved about our conversation when we talked about it before we recorded, which is this, you got that. And I think that that's rare. And I think that's the work that you and I do, is having people understand that it's not limited to, okay, I have to be a writer or I have to be a something. It's how do you bring that purpose to the thing? And I love that about what you were saying about how you ended up in succession.
Well, and once you figure that out too, I can go back into my childhood and see signs of it.
Absolutely.
It shows up for me consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My saying is that your purpose has never gone away. It's gotten hidden, but it's never gone away. And it's always been there. It's evolved and it's deepened, but it's not changed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're in an industry. I mean, let's talk about this right now. So there's a couple of pieces here, because one of the things I was saying at the beginning, which is why fix what isn't broken, which I want to come to. But aside from that, you're also in an industry which is branding, which we know has become so commoditized. I mean, every man and his dog, every woman and her cat are a branding expert,
Right.
right? So you've not just stood above the crowd. I mean, you are a million miles ahead of the crowd. How do we grasp that? Because I think that this is one of the things. Business generally has become commoditized, not just in branding, but in so many things. How did you deal with that inside of your company for those people who are potentially facing that in their own industry?
Well, I figured, well, yes, I think all businesses or most businesses are kind of living in the sea of sameness, right? Of
Yeah.
being commoditized where no one can
Yeah.
tell the difference, that, value proposition is all BS or
Yeah.
many times is BS. And what we started to see was that when we were working with clients where they were thinking about how they could create an experience that demonstrated their commitment to their brand and to what they were saying about themselves, was very different than the lipstick on the pig, what I'm going to call superficial branding, non-strategic, a marketing message that just falls flat. And so we started reorganizing our whole business. We had to throw out our brand process because we realized that because it didn't really address the inside of the organization. It didn't really think about the experience that every stakeholder has with your brand and what you're saying about yourself. And so if we are only customer focused and asking others what they think about us, and then you're shaping major business decisions around that, when the customer changes their mind, what are you going to do?
Right.
None of the competitive advantages are sustainable. I think it's Lencioni that says that culture is your last sustainable competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And your brand is an external manifestation of what your culture is doing at the end of the day.
And I think there's so often we get that the wrong way around, don't you? I mean, I see that, people, they ignore the culture, they focus on the brand, and it's all about that outward projection. And it's, the culture is a cancer. I mean, it's eating away at something that looks fabulous on the outside.
And people are your brand. I mean, and I'll just use the poster children for all of this, right? But you can ask anyone, if the Southwest Airlines or a Container Store or, Barry Waymiller, 100% it is about their culture. You experience it, you feel it, you can taste it, you can smell it, it's tangible. And that becomes their brand.
So purpose and branding, because, this is for me, one of the things I love about what you're doing is you've taken purpose and branding and put them together. But this is obviously, I know this too, we both experienced this. It's far easier in a startup situation, like, okay, well, let's just elicit your purpose now before you guys get going, and then it'll become the brand.
Right.
What about with, where I was saying before about it isn't broken, so why do we have to fix it? This is a company, a company's making 50, maybe making 5, maybe making $5 billion a year. They go, why do we have to worry about purpose? I mean, we're profitable. Why bother? It isn't broken. Let's not fix it. How do you have them grasp the importance of this, of bringing purpose to a company that has done well without it? Because they think they've got purpose because they've got, quote, a mission statement.
Right. Yeah, those aren't mission statements typically. That's for another day.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a huge dynamic. Listen, I believe that the CEO or the business owner needs to be a visionary, and that means thinking forward. And things are going great today. We obviously don't know what tomorrow offers us, and we can see just in the dynamics. I mean, you're seeing, millennials hate big business. I think it's like 80% of millennials hate big business, so they already don't want to come work for you, right?
Exactly.
We know that we have a labor shortage. We know that we're losing our boomers to retirement. They're looking behind them in their wake and saying, what have I left behind? What have I done in this world that's of importance? And why not? I mean, why not figure out a way to connect with all of these different audiences in a meaningful way? Because it's not about the money. I doubt any employee, I know that my employees don't wake up on Monday morning going, I can't wait to make somebody else some money today. That's
Right.
not what compels people to engage themselves at work. So even if you think that nothing's broken, you may find that there's a lot broken, or maybe people are working with 50% effort. And imagine life, imagine your company and what its potential could be if, people wanted to stay, if customers, there was lifetime value in a customer, they stayed forever, or employees were 75% engaged instead of 30% engaged, which they are today. And I think that's where the real power is. And I think it becomes part of purpose is who you are, but it's also in itself a strategy.
Yes.
So I just think it's short-sighted, honestly, if you don't think about what your business really means in this world, what impact it's having on the world, and who your tribe is, who is going to follow you kind of out into the future.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Bethany, because I find that there are still, it is a somewhat valid argument. Well, why do we need to do this? We're profitable. Why do we need to do this? We have no worse retention than ABC company.
Right.
So why do we need to bother about this? And I'm really interested to know how you get that across in a way that has them go, because I'm sure there are people watching, listening to us who are just that. They're CEOs, the founders, or whatever it is, and saying, we don't have one. This is going to be a commitment. This is going to be a financial commitment. It's going to be a time and energy and effort commitment. Why would we put it in when we're already doing well?
Well, first of all, you can put a number to almost any of this, because you can calculate what your turnover is costing you. You can reverse that and calculate what loyalty provides you. And so
Yes.
a lot of times we actually, our book is Get Your Head Out of Your Bottom Line, but sometimes we have to reverse engineer these conversations.
Yes.
With the bottom line and what the potential impact, because it's the level of investment that you're making in your company in your future. Obviously there will be, I think, great return. I'm toying with this term better profit. It feels like, okay, yeah, we're making $50 million or whatever it is, but can that be a great $50 million? Can you feel really good about that $50 million? Are people wanting to be helping you along in making your business fantastic? And what role do you play in, adding value to all your different stakeholders?
Well, one of the things that you and I discussed last time was, and you're very much involved in it, which is conscious capitalism. So for those who are not familiar with that, tell us a little bit about conscious capitalism and the tie-in to the work that you're doing.
Sure. So, there's, just to boil it down, there's basically 4 tenets, they call it, of conscious capitalism. It's a movement. John Mackey is really the spearhead, along with Raj Sisodia, who wrote Forms of Endearment. And their case is that business can elevate humanity, and it does. Capitalism is truly, in its essence, great, and it lifts society out of poverty. Quite literally, it saves lives, and business can be very much heroic when it is led from a place of purpose, where people really understand where they fit in this world, that they're not concerned about just investor shareholder value, the money, the dollar sign, like we've been talking about, where you can really look at all of your audiences and say, I think John Mackey says, any business strategy where one audience loses so the other one can win is a very bad business strategy. And so thinking about what winning looks like for all of your stakeholders in and outside of the company.
Yes.
And then from a place of values. So we slap values up on the wall. Like we just come up with this pay to play words, right, that mean nothing to anybody, or very different things to different people.
Sure.
Put a poster up on the wall, and then, we'll go into meetings and the CEO can't even remember what the values are, and they're sitting there right in the break room. So just putting real commitment and walking that talk, that's what conscious capitalism is all about. It's not just the money.
So in your process, walk us through a little bit of that, because, it's one of the things that drives me crazy too, is, I say, what's your culture? They hand me a brochure. That's not your culture. That's a piece of paper with some crap on it. What's your purpose? Well, we have a mission statement. It's on the wall. What are your values? Those are on the wall. What do they mean? I just slapped them with a cod. So, yeah. So, exactly. So, walk us through a little bit of your process so that people can kind of grasp this of eliciting purpose, whether it's in a startup or whether it's in an established organization.
Right. So we start with leadership, and there are arguments on both sides whether you should, include all of your employees and ask them and, try and get that sense. We have found that really it starts with the heart of leadership. Yes. And where they see the vision and what they want that company to stand for. And with entrepreneurs, a lot of times, like you were saying earlier, their core values, their personal core values oftentimes become the values of the company. Yep. Mm-hmm. With other bigger companies where it's a hired CEO, they still have a ton of vision, but it's better to get together with the whole leadership team. And what we find is you've got to start with that layer of rhetoric. So you've got to spend a couple hours talking about quality and reliability, financial discipline. You got to get integrity. You got to get all those words out. And then you start, you can use the 5 whys, but you've got to get below the surface. You've got to go deep. So sometimes we use play as a way to tap in, but you're trying to figure out not just what the organization's purpose is, but how do each of these members on the leadership team attach their own purpose to that purpose? And that's where you start to really kind of hone in on what the company stands for. We also say you cannot discuss money in this meeting. We're not going to talk about returns, profit, growth. Those are all a byproduct and outcome. And if you take that out of the conversation, you're not leaving them with very much because that's just their fail safe, shareholder value. Oh, we're going to double in size, those sorts of things, talk about their vision and purpose. So we try and remove all of that. There's also education. So it's very nice. If you go look at anybody that's listening has competitors, peers. If you go pull their messaging off their websites, their mission statements, and just remove the company name, see if you can find yourself in there because they're all exactly the same. So
it's that generic commoditized thing again.
Yeah. And the CFO is always sitting back at the first, oh, what is this exercise? What are you doing? And then by the end, they're the ones leaning in or up on the whiteboard, getting really excited because guess what? There was a reason they went to college for this stuff. There's a reason they were passionate about the business. And we've also found sometimes in that process that some leaders don't belong in the company. So that's a perceived risk. I think it's an opportunity. But if somebody's own personal purpose doesn't match where the company's headed and what the company stands for, that's okay too. And it's a real opportunity to kind of do that soul searching there. And then taking that out into the company, I call it inside out branding, right? So really testing and validating, but not just asking employees if they like a word or if they feel attached to it, but what in that company is happening that's in support of these values. And even more importantly, what's happening in that company that is counter to those values and behaviors, because a lot of times, even just simple things like the performance review is 180 degrees from where the value and the purpose of the organization is. Right. You will never become that company. You will never be that company if your systems and processes and operations and even products or clients don't fit into that description. That's a very important point at the end is that you said that, which is, what is counter to, because the work we do is very much on that path is like, who are you? What is your purpose? How is your purpose aligned with this purpose? And if we can't find alignment, and we'll often say, there's a good chance you're going to lose one executive. If it's 7, there's a good chance. Not always, it's not common, but there's a good chance you're going to lose one. And that's good because, as you said, there's not an alignment. That's all right. Let's have them go somewhere else. But it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating that they panic about that. And what is also fascinating is that the ones who are really in there, who get it, it changes absolutely everything. As you said, everything upgrades.
the quality upgrades, the performance upgrades, the profit upgrades. But it's difficult because I think that a lot of the times, they're looking for KPIs that they can say, okay, well, in 3 months, we'll have this system in place and then we'll see the profit. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not kind of how it works. It's not how it works. There are things you're going to see go massively different. And one of the things you'll see massively different is morale. And that's where I wanted to talk to you about is like understanding this at the level of morale. Because I think that, as you and I have spoken about on a previous call, and you just mentioned it again, this horrendous state of engagement, which to me is mind-boggling. 70-odd% of your staff or your team are disengaged, and some of them actively disengaged, meaning they're working against your company and you're paying them money, is freaking bizarre.
Yeah.
And yet people are still looking at the bottom line.
No, we allow it.
How do they not get that humanity is impacting the purpose, morale is impacting that? What would be your guidance around that to a listener, to a viewer who's going, yeah, okay, we're profitable, but yeah, I guess we have low engagement. I think, and everybody thinks that company's different, of course, you know that.
Right.
Not in our company.
Not my people. Well, one thing is, we talked about it a little bit on the leadership team, but creating experiences and ways for your employees to feel like they're involved. I call it like activation. So Typically, for instance, a town hall is just a CEO up on the stage, talking hat, right? Telling everybody what's on his mind, versus bringing employees into an experience to discuss what behaviors are and how they show up or how they don't show up. And when they're starting to do that, what you're doing, because you can do awareness all day long, which is the poster on the wall or the speech, but you've got to create believers and loyals and advocates out of your employees. And to do that, you don't just take, what the CEO says as stock answer. You've got to live in that. You've got to feel it. You've got to see that what the company is doing behind those words matches, your experience. And whether you fit in that, whether you want to be a part of that company is a very important question. And we should allow employees the freedom to answer that question, right? To select into where the company is headed. And so we call it visioning, basically, or Cameron Herold talks about the painted picture. So a vision statement is usually a couple sentences. Well, you can do an entire painted vision for what your employee experience should look like and feel like.
Right.
And you can elicit that input from your employees. You don't have to just do it in the management team room, right? But talk about what you want the experience to be like from day one when they come on board, all the way through even, retirements, what are lifers basically. And you can start shaping those experiences. So it's not just about words. It's not just about what you put on the internet or what you put up on the wall. And that's branding. Branding is the experience of those things coming to life.
So let's go into that, because I think that this is where people may be a little confused at this moment, because you and I talk a lot about purpose. I'm not in branding, but my work affects the brand.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is.
You're in branding, but you're purpose focused. So help our viewers, our listeners, to understand this lovely marriage you've done between these two things. We have
found we work a lot in like the oil and gas business, chemical businesses. We joke, companies people love to hate. That are actually made up of truly wonderful human beings. Yeah. And these companies are doing a lot of great things in the world. For every bad, they're also doing some really wonderful things. And in these scenarios, they don't have a product on a shelf that they're selling. Their people are their brand. So how do you make sure that people are customers or investors or suppliers are experiencing the company in the way they want it experienced? And so branding to us is about the people. And you, the misunderstanding is that branding is not a logo, you know, branding is not a brochure that you talked about. Branding is not words on a paper. Branding is what happens as that brochure is being delivered to somebody, as that person's leaving after they've left the brochure, after somebody's bought your product or is engaging with your services, and how can you impact that? And is it aligned, like you said, that purpose piece, all of that should be aligned to that. So it's not just anybody with a computer does branding just because you have a layout program. That's colors and photography and logo. It's really of shaping your story. It's storytelling.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important for people to grasp is not just telling the story, but living the story.
Yeah, you know, the world's gotten too smart. We can't get away with anything anymore. And I feel in our business, and I'm sure you feel this too, an ethical responsibility to this.
Absolutely.
This is not a marketing exercise. This is not like, let's come up with some cute tagline. This is the stand we're making as a company. This is who we are. If you want to be a part of this, awesome. And if you don't, that's okay too. You can, there's an opt out button, right? Instead of just listening to all the noise all the time and reacting, you can use purpose to develop your entire roadmap, your entire business strategy. And the money is going to shake out of that. You're going to spend less on marketing if you are branding with purpose than somebody that's trying to chase their peers around.
Fully agree with you. One of the things I've said and believe with all my heart is that purpose work is marketing. It's just not focused on marketing, but it's the automatic marketing. It's the automatic brand, as you said. And I think that, you know, it's one of the things I like about this is that branding is something people feel like they can get their hands around.
Right.
Purpose is nebulous. You know, it feels a bit visceral. It feels a little bit like, I can't quite grasp this. You know, we were working with a company recently, and we ended up working with another company that was recommended, and we were back in the room with the first company, and the CEO said, "Oh yeah, Dove and the team were out in this particular place working with that company," and they're like, "Oh yeah, really? That's great. We did work with them." And one of the people said, "Was Jonathan there?" He's the chief medical officer, and they're like, and he's like, "Yeah." And he liked this? Oh, he loved it. He's the biggest advocate. And they're like, "Really?" Because he's totally cynical about his stuff. And the truth is, I mean, you know, he has become one of our greatest advocates now. But, you know, he was like, his words, "I don't have time for this woo-woo shit. I haven't got 3 days, you know, to dig in and do all that kind of stuff." And now he's like, he sees how it's transformed everything in how they operate. And it's become the lead for their, financials. It's become the lead for getting investors involved. It's absolutely the lead on everything. And I love that you put the branding in the first. It's really smart because that's what it is. It becomes so, and so that's why I love the title of the book. Get your head out of the bottom line, right? And just realize that it's the brand. That's what you've got to do.
That's right.
You know, one of the things you said at the beginning, and I just wanted to come back to it, which I think is great, when we were talking about purpose, and you said, you know, you recognize that you can find elements of your purpose even in your childhood. How has your childhood impacted the fact that you are, or where did that come from in your childhood that you've become about purpose? Because again, there are a million people out there doing branding, very few focused on purpose. What do you think the sort of seeds that started?
You're like going inside me now. This is the vulnerability time, right? Okay, so actually Corey Blake, who I know you've had on your show, I've worked a lot with him, and he was asking me some pretty intense questions just in a conversation, because that's what he's good at. And, you know, I was thinking about all of the really high times in my life, like the really good times and what was happening in those moments. And I can, on the flip side, the harder part is where are my real lows?
Sure.
And I can, from looking at the high highs and the low lows, I can see that my whole being is about connections. My whole purpose, my whole personal purpose is about making connections and inclusion and having my tribe and having that sense of belonging. And there's nothing more terrifying or horrible for me than being alone or witnessing others be alone. And so I feel like everyone needs a place to belong. And I believe businesses are there to unleash the good and help people belong to something that they care about and they feel like they're part of something. And so you can just see the progression of how that becomes my business, because that all this branding work, all this purpose, you're going to the mat for this and you need your tribe. And when you have that tribe, it's unbreakable bonds. It's the tightest of connections. And it's like Red Rover, right? You're like gripping, death grip on each other and no one's coming in. And don't you just want that for your company? Like that's just the holy land to me. I mean, that's it, the holy grail.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, but it takes, you have to ask yourself some tough questions to get.
Well, and that's the point, right? I mean, I think that, this is the thing of, I think it's the real reason that people avoid purpose is because it's not surface. And you've got to dig in and you've got to be vulnerable and you've got to be open, at least with yourself.
That's right.
So
well, even when you're
in that context, sorry.
No, just as a company asking yourself this time, what have been the real highs of this company's life? If we're talking about companies that have existed, were already good, what are you most proud of and what are you really embarrassed about? Like, what were the lows of this company and what was driving that and happening then? Those are tough questions to ask.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's easier to live in denial. Oh, it's always been good.
Yeah.
Or to blame external forces. And really, if you give that hard look, there's an opportunity to answer a big question there.
Yeah. And again, I think that I really believe that at the foundation of purpose work is courage. And we will often say that if you're not willing to be courageous, you're not going to get to what your purpose is. We're going to get to, we're going to get to another mission statement, and that's fine, but not with us, not what we do.
Right.
And that willingness to be courageous and answer those questions you're talking about, that can seem threatening, but it's like, again, it's not broken.
Right.
And people say, well, it's not broken, so why fix it? It's not broken, but it will break. You and I and we live in a world of disruption,
right.
And things are getting broken that weren't broken. Blockbuster was not broken. It was not broken until Netflix went, let's find a better way.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Blockbuster went, yeah, you'll probably fade away as a bit of a fade, a phase that people are going through. No, you've disappeared and you dominated. And I think that's one of the things that people have really got to grasp. Asking those courageous questions about things that don't seem broken.
Well, and, it's interesting too, you're saying, because a purpose is typically not about your products and services.
Not at all.
Right? And to me, that gives you so much more power to innovate and to be the disruptor, right? Because
Exactly.
You have this freedom because you're on a mission. You're actually doing something of great value, which means if you're in the pursuit of serving that purpose over and over again, you are less likely to be the Blockbuster of the scenario, or the Kodak,
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is. You've seen it countless times, but their head is in the bottom line. They
Exactly.
were focused on their profit, on the bottom line number, and it just passed them by.
Exactly. So in that context, what is it that keeps you up at night?
I couldn't say my kids. That would be my easy answer.
That would be a good answer, though.
Yeah, honestly, this courage piece, sometimes you have to psych yourself up, right? Because this is hard work, especially coming into a business that was already great and it's my mom's baby. I mean, this business was born when I was born. It's 45 years old. And
Right.
I have to find that courage and that spirit and that energy every day. And I think the thing that keeps me up at night is I really don't want to disappoint my team here, right? I want them, we're in this together, and it feels very real to me, and they're putting a lot of faith and trust in me, and they're experiencing a lot of change all the time. And I know it's right in my gut, but it's still really hard because it's so much easier to get up in the morning and just do things the old way. Because again, they weren't broken. We're a great company, but having to do that, that's what rolls my mind at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you have this process. You help companies, and now for under $30, people can grab your book. Why did you decide to put it in a book?
Well,
because I'm sure you charge more than $30.
Yes.
A little bit.
So just a little bit more.
A little bit.
I can't get, it's like the gospel. I can't get the word out there fast enough. Right. My team can only do this one brand at a time, so to speak. It can only impact the lives of so many companies. And I think this is a calling for every company that wants to sustain. And so I don't mind giving it away for free. If you can do this, if you can take this book and put it into place and get it done, please do it. Because the more companies that are living this way and really standing for something meaningful, the quicker people are going to start loving business again and loving capitalism again. And that serves society. And if that's my mission, so that's my purpose, is to revolutionize corporate America, then I can't be on, just team Savage. I've got to make sure that others are doing it too, which is why I'm so connected to you.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. So, and I have to ask you this, I meant to ask you this earlier on, which is, how did it become Savage?
Oh, I do know.
That's a great title.
And I'm going to disappoint you. Savage is my mother's maiden name.
Is it really?
Yes. And it just happened. I'm so glad it wasn't like Smith,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Savage is just the best word. And it's a trendy word right now for some reason. But yeah, it's her last name. And we've appropriated it to just talk about our spirit, and our culture is very savage, and we call our people savages. And yeah, I just lucked out by birth.
I guess the purpose was calling at all levels.
That's right.
That is fantastic.
Well, it's perfect because you're all the neuromarketing stuff that's coming out, and branding, all about that reptile brain, and
absolutely,
visuals are the number one way to communicate. And here I am, just sitting here as Savage. It's perfect.
That's pretty awesome. Aside from going from working in LA and doing that kind of stuff, what was the turning point in your life, in your leadership, in your business philosophy?
So it's hard to forget Macondo, the big oil spill that happened several years back. At the time, we were doing some safety behavioral change work inside a couple of different organizations. And when that happened, I guess the only word I can come up for is like just an epiphany. That happened and lives were lost. And I know that those companies have safety campaigns, and I know that they talk about, our people are our most important asset, and safety is number one, and don't risk anyone's life or anything. There's no consequence. And I just started thinking about that and thinking about the intentionality behind some of the work we do, because in branding and communications, we are helping shape people's opinions, behaviors, we're motivating actions, we're inspiring. And I need to make sure that my clients mean what they're saying. And so that's when I really said, oh crap, I can't do the superficial branding work. I can make anything look pretty, and I don't want to be in that business. Right. I need to make sure that everything we're saying about a company is absolutely true, manifested in the company. So that's really where it started. And then obviously Simon Sinek was publishing, and Conscious Capitalism was coming out, and I started just connecting, but I wanted to get out of theory and start seeing how we put this into practice, because it's so important.
Yeah, and that's really fabulous, because what I was saying about before is that, you know, as a branding company, you were already successful, but
Yeah.
you actually changed gears and said, yeah, branding, we're working, we're making success, but now we got to do it from a completely, and you know, I love what you said about that you threw out your system and started again.
Yeah.
So what is it that drives you on a shitty day? Because we all have shitty days. You know, you wake up and it's like, crap. What, you know, maybe it's on a day like when there's been an oil spill for a company you've done work with. What does it get you out of bed? What is it that drives you on one of those shitty days when it would be easy to pull the blanket over your head?
Look for something beautiful because it's there. And I mean, even in my worst days, I just consciously try and create an intention for the day to find something beautiful or great. Typically, that's in other people. Again, that relates back to my own personal purpose. But if you look for the good, if you look for the good in people, it will turn your whole attitude around. I have some employees that are just infectious with their positivity, and I just need to go sit with them and just soak it in a little bit, and then I can change the mood contagion, I think is what they call it. So that's really what drives me, is just to intentionally look for the good.
Yeah, that is wonderful. What, you know, I you know, you and I, again, previous conversation, but in my experience, the greatest leaders are the leaders who understand that growth is not something you do, it's something you're doing. It's ongoing. And that there's an evolution to who we are that never stops. What is something that you are actively working on in yourself, not just in business, but as a human being, to upgrade yourself as a human being? What is something that you are still really working on?
So there are so many areas that I'm working on, but I've done a couple of things. So one is I'm a member of Vistage, which is a leadership organization, and it forces the mirror in front of you because you're with peers, and it's all confidential, and you figure out pretty quick you don't know it all. And it's it's a very safe environment to where we're helping each other become better leaders. So what I've found is my kind of one of my greatest strengths and one of my weaknesses is I like to be liked a lot. Like
Right.
it's a driving force. My relationships are very important to me. I hate it when I'm not liked. I hate
Sure.
rejection, all of that. So it's a strength because I'm a real people person. I'm an extrovert. I have a ton of friends. My network is amazing. At the same time, you know, when you need to say no to a client, or when you need to have a really hard conversation with an employee, I really struggle. So I have a coach that helps me work on my ability to have those hard conversations and to be more accepting of potential rejection. And by the way, it turns out once you have those hard conversations, you're usually better off than you were before having them. And then I've also found a couple of people in my own company that hold me accountable. So I will, when I find myself kind of slipping into some bad behavior, I go to them and talk it through a little bit, and they follow up with me to keep me honest. So that's my constant work, is on just knowing that about myself and having to overcome it. And hopefully one day it won't just be, I mean, I hope it becomes habit to be able to do it.
Yeah, I deeply believe in the work that we do with my clients, my private one-on-one clients, and with companies, is that I've never met anybody so far who doesn't demonstrate their greatest strength as their greatest weakness. It is always a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And the only distinction is whether one is consciously not only aware, but consciously committed to watching for the other side of that blade, you know, because it will cut you in half if you're not careful. So, you know, I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because I think that all too often people, viewers, listeners, look at someone like Bethany and they go, oh, you know, I wish I was all that in a bag of chips, and there she is, and I'm, you know, but there's the humanity, and I think that we forget that, and this is the problem with leadership and founders and CEOs, is that we pedestalize. We live in a society of pedestalization, right, rather than humanitizing, and just, you know, and getting the humanity of people and seeing the depth of who they really are, with their foibles, with their flaws, as well as with their magnificence. And leadership is an everyday thing of crawling over your own insecurities. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah.
In a world where we everything seems to be so politically correct, and particularly for somebody who doesn't like to be disliked, uh, what is your bravest opinion? It's the thing that you know, it's pretty uncomfortable as an opinion to say, but it's like, it's the truth for you. It doesn't have to be political or anything. I mean, it could be, but you know, what is it for you that you feel like is not said enough? It's a brave opinion for you.
I've got to really think about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just don't believe that the investor is that important in the conversation and the strategy of the business. I think the investor reaps the byproduct or the outcome of what you're doing. And I mean that even in my own company. I try and keep my shareholder hat out of the conversation. It's an important, obviously an important audience. That's where the capital's coming from investment. But when I think about where I'm driving my business, if I start putting my shareholder money cap on, I'm going to make some really bad short-term decisions.
Right.
And they're going to kill me. And even worse, they're going to kill my credibility with my whole team, because I've been talking this way. And then if I start doing this way, and it's very hard because I work in the business, I work on the business, and I own the business.
Sure.
And it's an unpopular opinion that it's not that the investor isn't important, but you got to put that over here in this conversation about what your brand is.
I love that, because I love the integrity of that with what you're saying about the title of your book. Get your head out of the bottom line. I mean, it's in integrity with who you are. And that's what I love about it.
Well, and I've had to get back to my weakness, my strength weakness is I have to be okay with people saying, you know what, I think you're crazy. That's
sure.
No, thank you.
Get used to that one.
I'm kidding it. I'm kidding. People look at me like I have a third eye sometimes. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
That's just how I believe.
Yeah, I understand that.
Get out.
You know, I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So as we sort of wind towards the end of the show, I want to ask you, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? What brings me absolute joy is my son making me coffee in bed.
Really?
Day. Yes, it's so cute.
Oh,
He's
9?
9.
That's very sweet.
He would start making me coffee in bed because I needed it. I guess he just sensed that about me, that I need some calm. So that's my personal what brings me joy. And what brings me joy at the office is getting off the elevator and having all these wonderful people around me every single day.
That's awesome. What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure? Wine.
What kind?
I don't
What
care.
kind?
Red. No, I like
kind that has alcohol in it?
I like the Italian bees. So Brunello and Barolo and Barbera. Yeah, Italian red. That's my guilty pleasure. And I will admit this only to you, I read People magazine.
There you go. That's the one. Beautiful.
That's what you're looking for. The
Yeah,
one
you know, it's fascinating. I never look at anything like that. But then you find yourself in a doctor's office with those magazines that are 3 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Oh, Cher had that. Oh, and Jennifer.
Sucked in.
Do I care? No.
Yeah.
Would I ever buy one? No. But if that is on the chair in the doctor's office, yeah, I'm picking it up.
Yeah, see?
I get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
It's so bad. It's so embarrassing. I can't believe
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely the fast food of mental. It's the McDonald's of mental.
It is. It's a complete
digestion.
escape. Complete
Oh,
escape.
totally.
That and watching Forensic Files. Junk. Anyway.
Oh, right. I love it.
Are you going to tell me yours?
Mine, my guilty pleasure. That's a very good question for me. And I know I've come up with them before, but I want to see if I can find something that's a bit more new as a guilty pleasure. My guilty pleasure was, without doubt, brie. Brie cheese.
Okay.
I don't do well with dairy. So my stomach didn't like it, but I would, I'll do intermittent fasting, and then I break the fast, and I was like, what can I grab quick? And I will take a slab of brie cheese. So that was, but now goat brie.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And that's good. All right.
Oh, yeah. So as we come to the end of the show, I would like to, it's really important for me that people understand the practicality of what we've talked about. So as we sort of wind down here, what is something that you would have our viewers, our listeners do to take action that was a practical piece of advice that they could go do something with, preferably in the next 24 hours, but certainly within the next working week? What would that practical advice be?
So we have found that even the greatest of companies, like you said, the unbroken companies that think things are swimming, they think that their leadership team is all on the same page, because of course we should be. We're all driving the same direction. So we have 5 questions. It's in the back of our book. I'll also give you a web URL if people want to go take it, and have their management teams just go answer these 5 questions.
Fabulous.
And it will tell you whether you're on the same page or not. And you might find that you're all over the place, which provides you an opportunity to maybe get in a huddle and really talk about what those questions mean to you, and what they mean to the company, and what y'all need to do on your journey to kind of come together and coalesce and have a singular mission and purpose and way you're going. So I offer those up for free. I mean, it's again on my website, and also there's exercises in the book. But that would be the first step for me, because it's always so telling. It takes 5 minutes literally. So just have everybody on your team go do that, and you'll see kind of where your baseline is.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Listen, Bethany, this has been a joy and a pleasure, and it would be, and I sincerely appreciate your wisdom and your vulnerability and your everything that you shared. Please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can go and find out more about all the resources that you offer.
Sure. Well, I like to talk, so anybody can call me anytime, but
okay.
You can go to savagebrands.com/Baron, and there you can find out how to get the book. You can take that 5 minutes, 5 and 5 questionnaire that I just mentioned. And it has my contact information as well. So
fabulous. So savagebrands.com/Baron.
Correct.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for everything that you shared. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us. I hope you'll stay with us to the end. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm feeling good.
Good. And remember, for you, dear listener, as always, if you just listen, nothing will change. Information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation comes from application. Put it in use. I highly recommend that you go back, listen to the show again, take some notes, and then devise an action plan. If only going to the website to start, savagebrands.com/Baron, and you can find out more about Bethany and her wonderful company. And you remember, you can chat about this show or any of our past episodes inside of our Facebook group. Just look for Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. Remember, the research consistently shows that the fastest growing companies often face the same challenge, in that they're spending a fortune training, attracting, and developing talent, only to have them leave at an alarming rate. If you're sick of training and developing your talent, only to have them leave before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Also remember to stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. Matrix like the movie. You don't need a triple W, just matrix like the movie.fullmontyleadership.com, and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. It's absolutely free to you today. To find out more about hiring me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or strategist for your organization, you can also go to fullmontyleadership.com, and you can just /consulting or speaking as you choose. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about whether your brand is on paper or whether it's in the hearts and the minds of your people and your customers. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep readiness to reach the next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.